Hey everyone, Dockwell here, and welcome to another video. Today's video we're going to be going over the patch 7.34, and yes, I just released a couple tier list videos, but I don't really care. I knew that the patch would be coming soon. I just kind of wanted to document, where the meta was at, because I knew there would probably be a pretty big shakeup, and this is going to be the TI patch, almost certainly. Now, they'll probably do like a letter patch, B, C, D, who knows where we will be at the time that they actually have TI. Like, we'll probably have some changes because some things will be broken, of course. But, they added a few new abilities for different heroes and changed things up significantly. So I think there will be new broken stuff and they'll have to nerf it, but this is going to be basically the TI patch. It's not like huge, it's not the 7.33 patch, but I don't think anyone's really expecting such a big patch, but it is a significant patch, and it is a pretty good patch, I would say, so far from what I'm seeing. So we're just going to jump in, we're going to go over every single thing that I think is relevant. We're going to skip some of the minor buffs and nerfs. We're going to go over all of the relevant stuff, and I'm going to show you basically, the new abilities as well, I think, for each of the heroes. So we're going to be doing that this time. It's not just going to be me talking about it. So I'll probably talk about it, but it'll be, I'll show you clips about what the abilities do and kind of describe them and that kind of thing. So let's just jump into the very first thing. This pick ban phase for Captain's Mode, not really super important, I think, for most of us, but it is interesting. It's not really going to affect us when we're playing because we're not pros, but obviously it is cool for the pro scene to see how they're mixing it up. And basically they're just changing like the entire order of bans and picks, and they're actually changing it depending on whether or not you get first pick or second pick, which is kind of cool. I think it's just an interesting idea. We'll see if it works out, if the pros hate it or like it. I haven't heard any opinions yet. Obviously, this is brand new. But I do know that, like, for a while, first or second pick, I forget which one it is. I don't know the pick order exactly. But one of them usually is better than the other almost every single time because, like, you get last pick and you get to counter. The very last pick is favored because you're countering everything in the draft if possible. Like mid, you get the best matchup mid or the best carry matchup, whatever, and I think they're trying to address some of that here. But obviously I'm not an expert on that, so I'm not going to really talk too much about that. So we're going to move then to basically, we're going to kind of skip this alternate cast, not a huge deal. We're going to move to some of these changes that they have here. The biggest one in this area, I think, is the slow resistance. So they didn't take away status resistance because it is here, but status resistance doesn't affect slows anymore. Slow resistance is its own thing, which is kind of cool, interesting, weird idea. So later on, we'll see like Tiny, I think, just his ultimate grow gives him like up to 50% slow resistance or like 45% or something like that. So there are these weird like slow resistances in the game now, which is kind of interesting as like a whole separate thing to keep track of. So that's kind of cool. We'll see how that ends up working out. But like it seems like the resistances that are slow resistance, or like the abilities that give you slow resistance, it's like way more. Because that was kind of the thing. Status resistance for stuns is always really good, even if it's only like 10, 15, 20%. That's really, really good. But for a slow, it's kind of like if you're slowed, you're slowed. And really all that matters is, can you run away, or will the enemies catch up to you? And like, can they, once you're not kiting them, once they can just click you, it doesn't really matter how much slower you are, if that makes sense. Slowing only matters to a certain extent of like, it's almost like an all or nothing kind of game. It's like, can you get away? Are you faster than them or not? And that's all it is. So status resistance didn't really matter as much for slows, but now the slow resistance stuff, it's like, it's a higher percentage, it's all the way up to 50%. So if you're only slowed by 50%, that's of whatever the ability is, that's a lot. That's significant. So we'll see how that ends up working out, if they'll have to tweak the numbers there for some of those things, but it's kind of a cool idea. Then the other thing is they just changed basically some minor stuff about the map, but really nothing huge. I mean, they did change the position of triangle, watchers, and outpost. That's the big one. Yeah, they moved the outpost to the main jungle, from the main jungle to the triangles, which is kind of just an interesting thing. I wonder what that will do to the map. Had mixed feelings, heard mixed feelings about the map, and I kind of have that too. It's not terrible by any means, and I do like the kind of fact that there isn't just like one heavily sided Roche thing, that it's like double sided, but it just feels a little awkward. Like they haven't like fine tuned it or gotten all the tweaks out yet necessarily. So that's kind of the main general stuff. And now let's just jump into the items. So first, Blood Grenade. They didn't change it a ton. They pretty much just made fewer of them that you can buy. The stock is just lower. They actually decreased the price. So you're probably going to be buying these every single time they're available. They were already doing that in like high MMR games, but now they're just going to be fewer of them. So you're not going to be spamming them constantly in lane because they're just like super OP. So they didn't really change anything fundamentally about them. There's just going to be not as many of them. Then Refresher Shard, they're just incentivizing people to actually hold it instead of put it in their backpack. And then the biggest change, I think, from all the items is Smoke of Deceit. They're just allowing the team coordination aspect to be a little bit easier. Basically, if you smoke yourself and you get near an ally, they will become smoked. It can only happen once per smoke, so if they break smoke on an enemy, it doesn't actually re-smoke them by coming near to you, but it just allows you to, you know, it's always the annoying thing. You have to get your whole team in a kind of area and then press smoke, and that can be annoying. You know, someone's farming or whatever it is. Now you just have to smoke yourself, walk near them, and they kind of get the message like, oh, okay, we're going to smoke now. It's just way easier for pubs in general. Not something that is super big for like pros or high MMR as much, but it is just, it makes coordination and team play a little bit easier, which is pretty cool. And then kind of a buff to Arcane Link because it sucked. Armlet of Morrigan, the slow resistance, that's kind of cool. Just adding that in there, we'll see if that matters. Battle Fury, kind of a decent buff, I guess you could say. It doesn't really change too much, except you're just doing more damage to heroes now. So you kind of farm the same way, but do more damage to heroes. Chrysalis, Daedalus, Silver Edge are all pretty much better. I mean, Silver Edge isn't actually better, but they're just a little bit cheaper, which is good. Desolator, 30 damage from 20 to 30. That's a lot. I mean, that's a lot of damage. They just made this even better, which I feel like Desolator was already kind of good. Maybe I'm just... I don't know. I guess it wasn't bought by a lot of heroes, and people did skip it a lot. But I always liked it. It's one of my favorite items, just because I feel like I love this raw damage. You know, if you have a good deso timing, it feels like you like two-shot heroes on the right. You know, if you're playing like SF or something like that. Not much to say about this. Hand of Midas is an interesting change. You get 2 charges now. You start with 1, so it's not like you just like get to use it twice immediately. It's more that like if you die with it on or off cooldown, so like, you know, it's about to come up in 5 seconds, you die, now you're just sitting at base and it's like there's nothing happening because you haven't used it. That's kind of preventing that, because now you can use it and another charge, or like if you don't use it, there's another charge like building up in the meantime, so it just makes it a better item overall for like it's less punishing when you die and stuff like that. Harpoon, small nerf. This Heaven's Halberd nerf is pretty significant because you used to be able to get this off on people. If you just clicked it on them before they BKB'd, then they would waste their BKB, but that no longer applies really. None of these things are huge. Maelstrom, Mjolnir, a lot of these items are doing, like the counter to illusion items are doing even more damage, I believe, because I think they just did normal damage. Now they're doing even more. So that's like Mjolnir, Maelstrom, I think even Radiant's got that change as well. Monkey King, Bar, slightly cheaper, not much though. Nullifier kind of nerfed because this used to go through debuff immunity, but now it doesn't, which not a huge deal, but it is significant because you could like you know, just because you press BKB, there's nothing, you just couldn't get Nullifier off of you if you wanted to. Overwhelming Blink, I'm not going to get into the changes there. Radiance, just more illusion damage, not getting into the changes there. Rod of Atos, this one basically just doesn't give you all stats anymore. Intelligence bonus decreased. You see that there. Now provides 300 health, but no longer provides strength and agility bonuses. That's pretty significant. Same thing with Gleipnir, because this was just like a good, solid all-around item. It was really good for Universal Heroes, obviously, as well. So now it's kind of just, you just get health. So you still get tanky, but you're not getting as tanky. You're not getting as much damage and all that stuff for Universal Heroes. So it just makes it so that's not like, this item was just insane on Universal Heroes. Not much to say about there, just small buffs to these things. Oh, this does more illusion damage as well. And then Spirit Vessels, last thing I'll probably say here, it just gives you pretty much all stats, which is pretty good. No longer provides health, but you do get all stats, so you get 12, which is pretty awesome. So we'll see if that changes who buys it or who, you know, just because all stats are pretty good, more Universal Heroes, those kinds of things. But I'm not sure how much more people will buy this, but, you know, maybe it'll be better. Then I'm just going to skip all neutral items. Boring, should be removed from the game. That's my opinion. Maybe the like last tier should be in the game. I don't know. Just kind of boring. I don't really care if, you know, what happens there. They're not super significant. That's not. I'm just not going to waste too much time on them if they're not that significant. Okay, so now we're getting to the hero updates. Like I said, I'm going to skip the ones that I don't think are really that important. Abaddon, small buff to Alchemist. I think small nerf to AA. Now, Anti-Mage is kind of the big one. This is pretty interesting. So, Agnum's Shard upgrade has been reworked, and now it creates an illusion of AM next to an enemy whenever you reflect a spell. So that's pretty cool, because basically the other shard you never got, it was just kind of boring. I don't even remember what it did. It just did like more magic resistance or something. Who knows? Anyway, now it's like a little mini version of the Ags. So instead of like being able to blink an illusion wherever you want, now it just like automatically creates one, which is pretty cool. And you also get an ability that you can use on allies too. So like if you're sitting back, you kind of have this weird like thing to help allies, which you never had before. Anti-Mage was completely selfish in every single way. Now your shard reflects abilities, which is crazy for allies. So like if you're sitting in the back, or if you're playing support Anti-Mage like everybody does, you can use this shard to reflect abilities. Whenever you have like an axe or someone going in, they're going to get spells casted on them. You can use this, which is pretty cool. And I think it also, when you reflect, like regardless of how you reflect, it still spawns an illusion, which is pretty awesome. So that's pretty cool. Arc Warden, some changes, not going to mention that. Axe, small nerf. Bane, small buffs. Bat Rider, whatever. Beastmaster, there's some changes here, which are pretty interesting because they kind of removed one of the things that makes this hero good. Now, it's not like something people focus on a lot, but the fact that you can have a hawk, like just like a ward that you're just sending anywhere and it's invisible, and it's just flying around or whatever, and you can have vision wherever you want. It's temporary, doesn't really cost very much. That was pretty good. And now they just kind of took that out of the game. So this vision advantage that you get from this hero is just gone. And now you just have this like hawk flying above you. Now, I'm not sure, it might give vision. I don't remember, reading all this, but it basically is this like weird little stun thing. So it takes one part of his game, kind of makes it worse, but then now he has this other thing that he's like, he's not just reliant 100% on his slow from his boars or his ultimate to stun. Now he has these other little like damage, little stun things happening as well that are kind of just like floating around him. So now it's even like worse to just fight this guy head on. He has all these little creeps around him. He has this hawk around him. He has a giant ancient camp creep or whatever. So I think that's a kind of cool change, because this like little weird stuff like free hawk vision, it's boring, it's not really fun, and it's annoying. And now this is kind of like cooler. I just think that's like cooler. Now maybe it's worse in a way. I don't know if you can counter this or kill it or what. I'd have to actually like play against it to see how good it is. But yeah, it's kind of an interesting change. Bloodseeker nerfs, I think. Bounty Hunter, small changes, but I'm not going to focus on those. It's not really that interesting. Brewmaster, not super interesting changes. Bristleback, kind of a big change here. They took out the Ags, which was kind of the way this hero was mainly played, is you would just buy Ags, and you were kind of a carry then. And now this is actually, it's hard to say, but I think this is better because it's more of like the off-lane version in a way, because you're kind of like, it's a defensive version, but it also is offensive in a way. So you turn your back in a direction, kind of like Mars when you like click and activate the shield. So you like face a direction and you can kind of like move while still facing that direction. It's the same thing but reversed, where his back, obviously they're like kind of a similar hero where Mars takes less damage from the front, but yeah, from the back he kind of points his back in a direction, but then he like shoots off a bunch of quills really quick. So it also does a lot of damage. Like if you test this out, it does insane damage, which is pretty cool. Now we'll see how good it is. Is it worth the 400 or the 4,200 or whatever upgrade? I don't know, but it seems pretty good. Like you can just shoot out a bunch of quills really quickly, and you can still kind of move around. So that's pretty good. And the hairball's now better too, I believe. So some small upgrades on that. So it does kind of all the same things it did a little bit, but it's just better. Mana cost decrease and cooldown decrease too. So you're almost getting like the old Ags in a way, not exactly obviously, but you're getting that kind of effect from the shard, which is pretty cool. So I think this hero might be back. We'll see. It could be broken, honestly. We'll see how much damage this actually does. And this cooldown is only 20 seconds. That's not that much. I mean, you're probably still only going to use it maybe once in a fight, maybe twice, but still. Get like an Octarine core and I don't know, you're just spamming that and just destroying people. Broodmother, I think, was nerfed a little bit, not super interesting there. Centaur is another one. This hero has been dead for a long time. They gave it this weird cart, meme thing, and now they kind of changed it up a bit. So I'll just go to that first, since that's the main thing I'm talking about. Is new ability granted by Ag Scepter. Warrunner deploys and pulls a cart. Okay, so it's the same thing, you know. But you get the Stampede buff, and the Workhorse abilities are placed in the Hitch a Ride sub ability, which can be activated with previous effect. The Workhorse goes on cooldown once the cart disappears. So it's like kind of the same ability, it's just like a little bit better, basically. Honestly, this, I feel like it's still a meme. The real thing that actually I think made this hero better is the Hoof Stomp. So the Hoof Stomp now, like, you still have an animation. So you see the cast point improved to 0 seconds, but now there's like a wind up, but you can still move. So it's not like you're just standing in place. I think this really helps for the landing stage. I mean, it helps in general. You're still telegraphing the move, but you can move with it, which is really good. So yeah, I think this is awesome. And it's easier to like fake, I think, too, because you can kind of like spam it out while still moving. So that's really cool. We'll see if that is enough to make the hero good. I don't think so, but it is a cool quality of life improvement. Not much here. Chaos Knight, Chen. Clinks, they did some stuff to try to like make the Ags better, but they didn't like, I think they should just change the Ags. It's terrible. I just, with the way this hero works now, you just don't buy Ags ever. And they didn't really fix the things that are wrong with it, I don't think. I mean, they made it better. So I just don't think the cost benefit of like actually buying that is worth it when you could just go some other item. Clockwork, and not really much difference there. Crystal Maiden, so they did change this. They basically added the Shard and the Ags Scepter together and just made it the Scepter. And now the Shard spawns like an illusion of CM, kind of. You get like a little push backwards, which is kind of cool because it's like a little bit obviously of a you know, mobility spell, and it's a defensive one at that, so that's kind of cool. But then also you have this like weird thing that like, it doesn't really bait people. That's the thing. It's not like an illusion that if you attack it like does something to you. It's more like against AoE damage stuff, because if you just read it, it doesn't, you can't really target it. So it's not really that much of a bait, more as like you can stick it there, you go defensive a little bit, and if there is some kind of AoE damage being done that's uncontrollable, that can be good. So it's kind of situational in that way, but it is pretty good. Ags is very good now, though. Darkseer nerfed, obviously, because he was very, very good. Dark Will, you can apply Bedlam now to yourself, obviously, like usual, but you can apply it to allies, which is pretty crazy. I think this could make the hero actually kind of picked, because you're just like giving your ally that goes in, your carrier, offlane, your initiator, whoever, like a Bedlam, like for free, which is, it's a significant amount of damage. I don't think it can be underestimated. Dawnbreaker, really nothing to speak of other than stun now pierces debuff immunity. So anytime anything does pure damage or pierces BKB, this is going to be good. There's like no exception. These, you know, pure damage and BKB piercing abilities are always going to be relevant, and no matter how, you know, nerfed the hero gets in any other ways, those aspects of the hero are always going to be good, at least good enough to make the hero somewhat relevant. So I think this could make Dawnbreaker pretty good, and there's also small little buffs there as well. Dazzle, nobody knows what this hero does anymore, so we're going to skip that one. DP, small changes. Disruptor, a small kind of cool change. This hero was already pretty good, and they gave it a buff, which is interesting. Doom, this is the next one that's kind of weird, I would say, because you no longer, well, first of all, Ag's Shard heals Doom and controlled units, which is that good? I mean, maybe, kind of, I don't know, very weird. But really the one is, it no longer mutes. Doom no longer mutes, but they can't be healed. So you can cast ability, I mean, you can cast items, but you can't be healed. So like you can't actually lifesteal, and you can't have like a Dazzle healing you, which is pretty cool. And there is more damage, and it is like lower cooldown, because they know it's not as good in some ways. But like often, I would say maybe abilities are better than items. Like you're still taking damage and stuff, so you're not blinking out. You know, I guess you could pop BKB, you could pop Manta, you can still do some of these things. I mean, you could sheep somebody, so like you have things you can do. It's not just like you're sitting there doing nothing. But I guess you could go Invis. That's another thing if you have a Shadow Blade. But again, he could just buy Dust. So it is worse. We'll see how this affects Doom. I have a feeling people are going to think this is trash and just never play him. DK, I will comment on. I think he's just buffed overall and pretty good. Look out for DK to actually be legit. Drow, the The shard was just weird. It was awkward. It felt like it should be good, but then it was terrible. You were just like putting this little barrier and you couldn't like walk around to hit people. But now you can like walk over it, which just makes it way better. Skipping both ESs, not super big deal. Outer Titan, not a big deal. Ember Spirit, they just nerfed a little bit. They actually increased the Flame Guard radius, but everything else got a little bit nerfed. So this weird like kind of glitch with the shard burn now is also like fixed. Enchantress, I would talk about this, but I don't really know. Like, I don't know. Enchantress is such a weird thing. This Sprink is so weird. Like, no one ever gets it. And, you know, I don't know. Now there's just little friends. Like, it roots people in place. I mean, that is good. I mean, this hero was already good. So, I don't know. Does this make this hero, like, insane? I mean, they decreased the untouchable slow in the beginning, but I mean, it's the same at max level. I mean, you are a support, like you are a 5 position, but this hero becomes this weird, like, carry from the 5 position. And this is the Scepter, I guess, that's true. So you're going to spend a lot to get this, so you're going to almost have to be a core to, like, even get this. But, I mean, Sprink seems okay, I guess, if it's just a shard. So, I mean, you're already doing a ton of damage by just being Enchantress anyway. So, I don't know, we'll see what happens with that. Enigma is a pretty big change to the hero because you no longer are converting units. You actually just cast the ability and it just spawns them around you. I think this makes this hero way, way, way worse. Because I think the whole point of the hero was you just like would cast this ability and it would push the wave into you and like deny creeps and all that kind of stuff. Now you're just kind of like spawning the thing around you, and it also costs health, which is also kind of crazy. I just think this hero's terrible now. We'll see it. We'll see what happens. But I think this like F tier, never pickable hero. Knowing like someone's gonna find something that's like, oh, it's completely broken. Actually, I don't think so though. But there's not enough of a change to actually make it broken. Grimstroke now fully pierces debuff immunity, which is pretty interesting. Again, like I said, anything that pierces BKB is going to be good. But this hero is just so awkward. I don't know. We'll see if this is enough to make it good. I don't know though. A lot of times with heroes like this, they go from never being picked, getting buff all the time, and then all of a sudden people realize, oh wait, this is broken, and then it's like S tier. So we'll see if this is enough to actually make that happen. Gyrocopter, some interesting things. You know, this is one of these slow resistance additions with the Rocket Barrage, but again, I don't know if this is enough to take this hero into, because it's like fighting between, oh, do I want to be a carry like I used to be, or do I want to be this like magic damage dealing support mid thing? I don't know, and I don't know if this is enough to actually flip the coin one way or the other. Hoodwink, not many changes. Huskar, not many changes. Invoker, big changes, but I'm not an Invoker player. So this is a universal hero, which why was it not a universal hero to begin with? I feel like this is pretty kind of like an obvious universal hero from my opinion. I mean, yes, he's like an intellectual guy, I guess you could say, but he deals with like all the different, you know, Quas, Wex, Exord. He deals with all the different elements. So, or what, I don't even know what you would call these, but he deals with all the different things. So you would think he would be universal. Now, I'm not going to go through every single one of these. I mean, no longer grants health regen. No longer grants attack speed. No longer grants damage. There's a lot of crazy stuff here. Spell lifesteal, cooldown reduction, spell amp. Okay? I have no idea how this is going to affect anything. I don't think anyone really is going to... You know, people might tell you some stuff, but it's really not going to be known whether this hero is good or terrible until good Invoker players play it, and then they say, yeah, this needs buffed, or this needs nerfed, or maybe it's at a good spot. We'll have to see. Not too big of a deal for any of these heroes. I will briefly mention on Juggernaut, they actually increased the lifesteal, but it now is calculated after armor reductions. We'll see if that actually makes a difference to the lifesteal ability, but it might even out, I don't know, or it might be nerfed, I'm not sure. Nothing here to speak of. I mean, Legion Commander was nerfed a little bit, but not much. They buffed Leshrac. Mana cost decreased. What? This hero was like picked all the time at I don't know if it was picked all the time at the major, but it was definitely picked in the other tournament all the time, which is very odd. At Riyadh, it was picked all the time. So interesting. I don't know why they did that. You would think this hero would get more buffs, but I guess they just hate Lifestealer. Nothing really to speak of. Lena's so bad that it's like, whatever. Lion, kind of a weird thing where you with the targeting allies mana drain, but again, I don't think this is enough to really. I mean, this hero was already getting picked a lot. So, and I think this is better. It no longer costs any mana. Nothing to like really showcase, but it is kind of cool. Next big one is Lone Druid. So Lone Druid The bear is now like universal, but it starts with 0 attributes and doesn't gain them with levels. So before, I think what you would do is, I don't think it gained attributes from like Scotty and stuff like that. I think that's why you bought like, you just bought, attack speed and like armor reduction and this kind of stuff. Deso, AC, Mask of Madness, Basher. You just bought this kind of stuff because this is what the hero used. It didn't really benefit from like Scotty and that kind of stuff. Now it's kind of the opposite. So we'll see how the build changes with that. But the other thing is that it basically, this hero has 4 ags now, 2 shards and 2 scepters, which is kind of insane. They kind of kept the same one where you can disconnect from the bear, but they also added this like weird root thing that like channels and stuff like that, and this other weird scepter for the spirit link, which you can like connect it to an ally. Just some kind of crazy stuff. We'll see. Like, I think obviously adding extra abilities and scepters is really good. But the main thing about whether this hero is going to be good is, the main change up here with the base attributes and the universal like creep hero unit thing for the bear. Is that going to make the build terrible and like it feels bad and it doesn't do anything now? Does the bear need to get buffed because it's terrible, or is this like super broken? I mean, it could be super broken because we know universal heroes were broken before, so we'll see what happens with that. Luna, another kind of weird, interesting thing. I like this ability because before, like 2 shards ago or whatever, I think you had Moonglave's pop on Ags, or an Ags shard. You had Moonglave's pop on Lucent Beam, and then they changed it like to be bad, and no one cared because it didn't have to do with your attack damage. And now, it is this like force field of Moonglaves hovering around you when activated. And if like you run into people, because this hero is kind of low attack range anyway, even though it's a ranged hero, you're kind of almost like in melee range half the time anyway. So now you have this like force field around you of Moonglaves that are like hitting people and doing extra damage, which is cool. Like anything that just does more right click damage with this hero is good, and it does apply right click damage, I believe. Yeah, 75%. So it's like another ability, any ability that applies right click damage. I said that before about pure damage and piercing BKB, but anything that applies like an ability that applies right click damage is always going to be relevant because it just is a way to like quickly dish out a lot of damage with an ability. And usually that like it's some kind of crit or something that just is super useful or from range. This is more melee, but it just adds, like if you just try to go in on Luna and like man fight this hero as like a melee carry, you're just gonna have a hard time when you have this Moonglaves popped, because you're going to be taking tons of damage. Now, we'll see how much that damage, like DPS over time, that actually does when you are trying to hit the hero. Like maybe they need to spin faster or something. I don't know. But that's a pretty cool change. Not much to say about either of these heroes. Marcy, kind of a small, weird thing that like for the shard. But then the big thing is Sidekick. It's like a permanent debuff. Dispellable only upon death, which is super weird, but it's also like has a range, so you have to be in range of the ally you're with, so it's like a laning kind of thing, but also like a team fighting thing if you're like going to gank or whatever, because you're not gonna like put this on someone, they get it, and then like run away, like overpower, or is it overpower or whatever on Magnus. Empower. I don't know why I was thinking overpower. I think that's the Ursa ability. But yeah, like empower on Magnus. It's not really like that. Yeah, because Marcy receives 50% of the bonus if they're further than 2,500 units away, and her ally receives no bonus. It's just awkward. I don't know. It's definitely good in lane. So are you gonna max this in lane? I don't know. That's the thing. It's just kind of a weird one. We'll see how it ends up working out. Medusa not nerfed again, which I mean, I guess it's been in an okay spot, so it's just kind of weird that they didn't really do anything to the hero. Meepo nerfed because it was very, very good. Not much to say here until Morphling. Morphling, they finally removed the Ag Scepter. That was stupid. And now this Ag Scepter is kind of cool because you just like make an illusion of an enemy, and then it does like all the damage of the enemy, so you make an illusion of the carry, so it's kind of the same thing in the sense of you're still like turning into the carry. That's like really good to do. You're just not stealing their stats, which is boring. You are using that carry against themselves, and then you can like kind of like shift into that if you want to, but you could just send it in and like do a ton of damage and not really put yourself in any kind of vulnerable position. And it also looks like you can just like do twice as much damage. You can have the enemy carry on your team as well. Now obviously the illusion is going to be taking 300% damage, but which is a lot, so it's not going to be as tanky or whatever, but it still does 100% of the target's damage, which is kind of insane. So I think that's really good, but it's like high skill cap because you have to control two things. It can cast all the abilities. You know, it's just good in that way where having something where you just steal stats and you're just like giga powerful with no extra like effort or skill is dumb. And this just makes this hero even higher skill cap. Even more skill is required to play this hero well. Some small things to Muerta, not a huge deal. Naga nerfed by 1 armor, like what? But I mean, hey, they did buff the stuff that deals damage to illusions, which helps, I guess. Which helps, I guess, a little bit. My voice cracked a little bit there, so I had to clear my throat. Maybe I'll take a sip of water. We're doing this live, guys. I don't cut anything, okay? I don't cut stuff. It's not what I do in my videos. I just go straight through. Anyway, Naga is base armor decreased by 1, which is weird, but again, nerfs in other places, I guess. Necro, this is kind of an interesting thing. The Ag Scepter no longer just like allows you to have Ghost Shroud up like permanently all the time. I exaggerate. It wasn't up enough to make it really feel that good. I mean, it was good, but it wasn't that good. Now this, health decay is increased by 60% of Necro's current health regen, which is pretty cool, I think. But we'll see if it's good. Might be bad. I like this like passive, this passive damage. And if you are, if you get a kill with your ultimate and that kind of stuff, and you have insane regen, you're just like melting people around you. But that doesn't last all that long, so we'll see if that's even good. It might be trash. Night Stalker, I'll just say, deals damage over time, crippling fear, which is cool because sometimes you would like jump in, blink in, and then people just blink out of your fear, of your AoE fear, which won't happen anymore. Nyx is nerfed. Thank God. This hero, so annoying, man. It's just running around blowing people up. Now, it's not nerfed a lot, but it is nerfed, which is good. But it also is buffed with a Spike Carapace. But that wasn't the thing that was annoying, so don't worry about that. Ogre, small buffs, whatever. Omni Knight, they gave him Repel back instead of Heavenly Grace. This is more like a BKB again. It's not like debuff stuff, whatever. I think this hero was already pretty good, like kind of on the up. BKB is way worse now, so that kind of sucks. But I think this is better. This is just straight up better. Like the other one was just odd. It was like this weird debuff that like applied to you and the hero, and it was like, oh, the more spells I debuff, the better. It's just, what? What even is that? Stop. So this is just, I think, better. And this hero might be legit now. Also, cast range increased. Pretty cool. Oracle, small changes here. The Sanity's Eclipse one, I'm not going to focus on. It's just like, Odie is healed by people that are like casting abilities after you cast a Sanity's Eclipse when they're like hit by it. I don't know. It sounds really weird, but it does something more than just blow people up now, which is interesting. Pangolier, they changed the shield crash. You don't get just like, if you hit 2 enemies or whatever with shield crash, you don't get like permanent invincibility. It's just a shield that has a small barrier, so it can be like deleted. It's not like, oh, hey, I take 90% less damage. I'm just going to kill everybody and never take damage, which is kind of, it just was so ridiculous. And also now, Lucky Shot no longer disarms, but does do attack speed reduction. So the disarm was super annoying, but this is also pretty big. Because I think the disarm was definitely dispellable. And this is 2. So I guess, you're not attacking at all with this, and now you're attacking a lot slower. So that does suck, but at least you could attack and you could still dispel it. So definitely worse. PA, this is pretty interesting. It's not like, there's a lot of words here, and it seems like, oh, what is this really meaning? All this does is it kind of lets you know when you're going to crit. It's pretty much the same thing as far as I can tell. I mean, I don't know all the numbers. Like, I'm pretty sure this damage is the same. I don't know. I would have to go back and look if the chance and the damage is the same or exactly the same, but I'm guessing it's kind of the same or similar. It's just that now if the next attack is going to be the crit, which helps a lot because you can like farm creeps, or like if you hit 6 in lane or whatever, and you get the buff, and you're like, okay, well now my next Stifling Dagger is going to crit, which is a huge deal. Because before you would kind of shoot out these stifling daggers and be like, oh, if I hit a support, you know, that'd be pretty cool. But sometimes it just slows them and you're like, yeah, whatever. But now if you can like kind of queue up that crit and you throw out a stifling dagger and like it crits a support, you can just jump in and one-shot them basically. And you just like know they're going to die for sure. Or any kind of hero that's like pretty low. So I think this is kind of broken, honestly. I mean, the hero has been bad in like high-level Dota, but overall this hero's pretty good. So I think like for pubs and stuff. So we'll see what that does. Not too many huge changes here. Some nerfs, some buffs to heroes that needed it. Pudge, I'll just briefly say, you can move now once you hit hook, where before you were kind of stunned until the hook ended. Like it brought the hero back, and then you could move, but you can kind of move before that. I don't know if that's a huge deal, but it's interesting. Some changes all to this. Razer, they finally made Storm Surge actually do something other than just give you move speed, which was stupid. So now it does this whole thing. It was the shard previously. So like when you are attacked or a spell is casted on you, you release a fork lightning that strikes the target and 2 other nearby enemies. So it's basically this, it's a pretty good ability now, I feel like, because it just makes you tanky and it's hard to go on you in lane. You can like actually max this in lane. Now, I don't necessarily think you're going to max this first like over your other spells, but I mean, you could get like 1 point static link and then like max Storm Surge or, you know, your other farming ability. I mean, you can still farm with this. It's only 18%, but still, I mean, this is good for the offlane. It makes Razer, even though Razer was good before and now he was nerfed a lot, it's always stupid to have a hero with like some dumb passive ability that does nothing. It's just like, and yeah, this might make him broken, but at least he's like interesting in some ways. And now they can just nerf everything or make everything a little bit more balanced around that, instead of just being like, yeah, the one ability does nothing. Oh, cool. Ricky was just like nerfed a lot. I mean, yes, the base agility, well, actually, base agility increased and agility gain increased, but then armor decreased. Dude, why do they do this? Just like nerf the hero or buff him. Stop it. Like, what? Backstab agility damage multiplier decreased? This hero wasn't even that good, was he? Like, I don't even know what's happening. Like, just buff the hero or nerf the hero. Stop it. And this hero's not even good. What are you doing? I just point that out because I hate when they do this kind of stuff. Next, we'll say Sand King. So Sand King this is a good change. I don't know if I even released the video because I did make a video for the offlane for that last patch, but I didn't even release it yet. But anyway, so the Sand King Sandstorm ability is terrible now because of dust. But now Sandstorm follows you at 100 move speed, which is pretty cool. It doesn't really fix the issue of dust necessarily, but it does help. Okay, it's not gonna fix it completely, but it helps. Now, is it enough to make the hero good? Probably not. In fact, no. I'm going to go out on a limb and say no, but it is pretty cool. It's like a start, and they did make things about the hero a little bit better as well. Like the shard now, just you don't have to move around. You can just stand there and it'll activate an epicenter, which is pretty cool. Not much to say about any of these things. Hex is now really good on Shadow Shaman, which is pretty cool. Like, now amplifies damage taken by the target, which is kind of insane. So that's pretty good. Nothing really to say much about these heroes. Slark's my favorite hero, so they just nerfed a little bit, but whatever. The linger duration was, I mean, it was good, don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's the biggest of deals. Snapfire, they did nerf this hero, but it wasn't a lot. But they did obviously nerf the build-up, you know, with the Atos and all that kind of stuff, so that is important. Sniper's kind of an interesting one. Not that I want to spend a lot of time on it, but just like you get, whenever you kill somebody, your assassinate comes off cooldown. The damage was decreased by a lot, though, at least, especially at the last levels, but also performs an auto attack on the target. So now it's kind of like a little bit maybe worth it to use the ability, because I think the weird thing about this hero is you just like never use the ability. So, but now the damage sucks. So it's like, I don't know. Like, do I actually even still want to use the ability? Yeah, I don't think so. Specter, a huge change in the patch, I think. I don't know if this is the biggest change for a hero. I'm trying to think. Honestly, this might be the biggest change for a hero. They switched the ultimate and the Ags. And this ultimate, I mean, this has been the hero forever. I mean, now I don't know back in Dota 1 days, but I'm pretty sure for all of Dota 2, this has been what the ultimate has done, and for most of the history of this hero, if not all of it. So they're just switching it up. Now the Ags does like the haunt to everybody, and the Shadow Step is now the ultimate. And I think this is a big deal because this just makes this hero now like you can participate way more in the game early on. It probably changes the build. It changes like how the hero functions because you can just like gank on a pretty short cooldown. I guess it is 80 seconds to start, so that does kind of suck. But I mean that's better than it was before. This says cooldown here 180 seconds, but the cooldown was like insane before. I mean you could haunt like once every 10 minutes or something stupid. But now, you know, every minute or so, you can basically do a little haunt to a gank. This hero still hasn't been that good, but I mean, hey, and you're probably going to buy Ags later on anyway, but you don't necessarily have to. Like, if you just think haunting in, because, like, that's the problem is, like, with the haunt, is a lot of times Specters are not buying Radiance these days. So they're just pressing R, they're getting vision of everybody, but then they're just usually haunting into one target and killing them. So if that's what you're doing anyway, like, it's good to have this on a lower cooldown. So that's pretty cool. Spearbreaker, small nerf, small buff. Small change, but this hero was really good, nerfed to oblivion kind of, but it's still sticking around, so we'll see what happens with that. Not anything I'm not going to talk about Terrorblade, whatever. Tide Hunter, Dead in the Water instead of Tendrils of the Deep, or Tentacle Surprise, as some people I know call it, but this is kind of a weird one. You like attach, you like shoot an anchor at somebody, and it's like slows them, and they're like dragging an anchor behind them, which is kind of weird. They can like destroy it in a few attacks, and it deals damage. And you know, cooldown 25 seconds, which is not like you're not using it too many times in a fight, maybe once, or probably once, maybe twice, but hey, just kind of a weird ability. Like, is this good? Is it bad? I'm not sure. I mean, it is a shard. You're probably going to get it at some point. It seems decent, but it also seems like the numbers, like, I don't know, what is it? What did it say? 100 move speed slow? 200 damage? Is that good? It can be disjointed, like. I don't know. I'd rather have a stun. I mean, the stun was coming out like giga slow, but still, I don't know. So I did the Tide one, and then I tested it out. I actually didn't test it out before I started recording, and I realized it's reduces heroes' movement speed to 100, not by 100. So actually, it's insane. This is pretty sick. Now, the cast range is like super close. You have to be like right next to them, which is kind of weird, but still, it's a shard. You literally walk up to them. They like have an anchor attached to them. They can't move. It's kind of insane. So it's actually pretty good. I thought it was bad. It's actually pretty good. This grow, you know, slow resistance, pretty cool. You're like tiny. You just like can't get slowed. Pretty weird. Troll, they removed Rampage. When I first read that, I was like, dude, they removed the stupid ultimate. Nope. They didn't remove the ultimate at all. It's still the same stupid ultimate. That stinks, and it's never. This hero's never going to be good, dude. You cannot make this hero good with this ultimate. I don't care. I don't care if now you can just cast the axes whenever you want, and now the shard makes you attack more. Whatever. I don't care, dude. I don't care. You're not going to make me care about this Troll Warlord until they change the ultimate. Stop it. Stop trying to make me care. Okay, I used to play the hero back in the day, and now I have not played him in 10 years because the hero's terrible. Slow resistance on Ursa's Overpower. Really weird. It's kind of just like an awkward thing, but hey, whatever. I'll take it. I like Ursa. I play him a lot. Not much to say with all of these guys. Not much to say here. There is a small void change. Like, this hero is kind of nerfed into irrelevancy, but I don't know. It's just, I don't know that this really makes it better. They did like help the Resonant Pulse with the Ags and stuff like that, but I don't know. Maybe this hero will be back a little bit, but there's not a ton of buffs or anything here. Warlock, this is an interesting change. So they just keep buffing this hero. Now Fatal Bonds spawns these little creep minion guys whenever like a unit dies, and then they like run after the closest unit. They like run after the hero. So this is insane, kind of. This slow that he had was already super annoying. You just like go invis, you cast it somewhere, and you know, people just can't move like instantly. It was very annoying in lane. It was annoying during team fights. But now you Fatal Bonds people in lane. Little minion things are spawning whenever the creeps die, and they run at the guys, and then you're slowing them. Like, I don't know. This hero might be broken now. This actually might be extremely good. We'll see what happens, but I just look out for Warlock being broken. Weaver, just a small Ag shard upgrade where, like, when you come out of invis, your Sakuchi, you do more attacks, which is kind of cool. I think that's actually pretty good. You just do more damage, which helps the carry version of this hero, because the support version has been dead for a while. The next big change. This might be the biggest change of the patch. I don't know. It's probably still Specter, but Witch Doctor does pure damage and pierces debuff immunity. That is ridiculous. Damage decreased, okay, so sure, but pure damage, dude, I'm telling you, you can never count out pure damage. The problem with Death Ward before was it was physical. So it just felt like it tickled people, like especially later in the game, you're like tickling them, they have like 50 armor, and like, oh, thanks for the Death Ward, buddy, you did 20 damage to me. Now it's pure, which is kind of insane. So, you know, they changed some other things about the hero. The cask is better too, but like they nerfed the hero in other ways because I think this is just broken now in a way. Like pure damage, we'll see how much it does. It obviously does, like I said, does less damage, but very, very good. I definitely like that they did this because this is like a fun hero. It's kind of cool. You like destroy lanes and you can just carry with this hero. I guess I'll really quick before I go on the next one. Ag Scepter attacks can now also bounce to creeps. Heroes prioritize. You can like farm with it. Oh, amazing. Not a big deal. Wraith King, they just needed to buff this hero, and they did. The skeletons do more damage and are harder to kill, but not that that's a big deal, I don't think. And then Zeus is the last one. I'll just talk about him because he's the last one. Not a huge deal, though. They decrease the damage on Thunder God's Wrath, but it also does 10% at the last level of the target's max HP, which is pretty good. Percentage damage is always going to be good. Lightning Hands, ability to change from autocast to toggle, which is, I guess, good. I don't know why you would really care, but yeah, so they changed that. So those are all the big changes from this patch. Like I said, the big ones, I think, are Specter, pretty cool. Morph, I think, is like technically not better than maybe he was before, but it's a pretty interesting idea. I do like the idea of what they did with Morph. Like I said, Witch Doctor, pure damage, never count that out. Bristleback, look out for that to be kind of interestingly broken. I don't know. Maybe it's terrible. I don't know. But it seems kind of cool. I like it. Lena, doing more damage, being able to like man fight people with these glaives flying around you is pretty interesting. Oh, and PA, that's right. PA is, you can like queue up your crit, which is ridiculous. And then Razer also having like an ability that actually does something now. So look out for that to actually be, because people love to just like pick Razer and just be like, oh, I'm picking Razer now because Razer's amazing and he's always been amazing, and it's like super annoying. So just look out for all those things in this patch. So I think it's going to be a pretty good, exciting patch. I do like all the changes. I think they said Ice Frog's coming back, or he's back into patching Dota, and I think that's probably true because these patches seem to be pretty good. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching the video. If you like the video, like, comment, subscribe, all of those kinds of things. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.